My name's Sean Goldsmith. I'm the CEO and founder of Markery. So, it was a really interesting conversation. I spoke with Rebecca from Neighborly. I have a lot of respect for her. So we were talking about how a lot of salespeople, right? Because I think a lot of the affiliates here and also the people from franchise development, they're selling something, right? So to be a salesperson, you have to be hungry. You have to be assertive, right? You have all these things that are very aggressive, deep down, right? But there's more gentle, nurturing nature to the sales process because you're selling a 10-year commitment in most cases to own a business, right? So I think there's a dichotomy between wanting to be very aggressive and assertive. They're slightly different things, but they're from the same family to get a deal closed, right? But at the same time, nurturing the relationship between yourself and the brand and the person that's going to own that specific brand, so that they're ready at the right time, so that you can develop that relationship first. So I think right now in the world we live in, it's really difficult to do things with expediency, but also keep that esoteric nature of developing that relationship over time and nurturing it. We want expediency, right? We want expediency, with social media ads and just being able to text people and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the deeper learnings, they take more time. It's hard to do with expediency, and you want to know who you're doing business with and who you're building a relationship with. You're not going to go marry someone that you probably never met unless you're on one of those TV shows, right? So same type of thing going on here, right? But with franchisors, and I think Doc brought it up earlier, Doc's our chairman of Markery, you want to bring in the right people. So there's that impulsivity that you want to close a deal right away, right? So that you're building the brand, because there's two ways to build the brand. It's unit economics, so to make franchisees more profitable, and there's adding more units and more franchisees. But if you bring in the wrong franchisee, and even with Markery, if we bring in the wrong affiliate, wrong broker, wrong brand, etc., it's going to create more problems in the long term. So I believe heavily in this concept of the long, short way. So putting in the upfront work, doing everything up front. So for example, we were speaking with Rebecca Monet from Zoracle, and we're saying how you really need to figure out the right persona for a specific brand. And let's say the brand's in senior care. You could have 3 different personas for 3 different senior care brands, depending on the maturity stage. So if one's a brand new senior care brand, one's emerging, and one, is, let's say, more mature, there could be 3 different personas. So going back to the franchisor, like what are they really, doing here? I think one, it's working with other franchisors that are non-competitive but are collaborative, and they could share best practices so they're not making the same mistakes over and over, but really figuring out the right fit, like who's my ideal candidate. Because now if you're going to go back to ad spend, if you really know that your best franchisees are, from, let's say, one specific company where they're laying off a lot of great people, you just got to have a few thousand people in your target audience, and you're going to save thousands and thousands of dollars. Your ads are going to be more on point. You're speaking their messaging. So you're saving a lot of money and time and effort, and your messaging is much more authentic. And again, you're building a relationship. So if you come off as unauthentic, if you come off as lazy, and you're just doing generic messaging, it's a really bad first impression. You're attracting the wrong people, and you're going to have more problems later. So let's get things straight up front. And I think that's what these types of events do, and help people figure out their strategy first. Strategy, in my opinion, dictates tactics. So once you have that firm strategy, then you'll be much cleaner in your execution of the tactics. Generally speaking, I think this is in life. There's a lot of options, but I think there's good actors, neutral actors, and maybe, I don't want to say nefarious actors, but just things that are destructive, right? So I think the challenge is finding who those good actors are and trying to have a collaboration with them. So instead of having things siloed, like we even had a conversation with a conglomerate brand, they have over 20 brands. They were doing franchise development, again, finding the right candidates for each brand in a silo. It was a lot more powerful when they pooled all their resources and said, hey, if I'm not a great fit at this brand, again, same parent company, let's try to make it fit and see if it's a good fit at this company. But they were wasting resources, right? Because they would say, oh, it's not a good fit at this company, we're done. Mm-hmm. That's not doing a service for the brand, for the marketing efforts and the sales efforts to acquire that candidate in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that's not really collaborative amongst the brands. So going back to what we could be doing here better, you have to figure out which brokers, if you're a franchisor, which brokers and affiliates you really like to work with. If you're a broker affiliate with franchisors, you feel comfortable with. So if it's senior care, you just can't meet all the senior care brands. Which 2 or 3 meet with your values and ethics, they're at a similar growth stage, you would resonate with them, with the candidates that are coming in there. Do you have experience in a similar brand? So you have to find the right grouping that works for you. Even for lead generation, there's a lot of options, right? But what's the right fit for you? Right. And piecing that together before you start spending a lot of time and energy. Because I think the mistake a lot of us make, including myself, is we like to run, right? Because when you're moving, you feel like you're making progress. But if you're running in the wrong direction, that's a problem, and that's worse than staying still, because you're expending blood, energy, sweat, and tears, and you're running quick in the wrong place. So it's very important to take a step back, pause, figure out that grouping that works best for you and what you're trying to accomplish, and then move in the right direction. It doesn't have to be running, it could be, baby steps, but at least you're working towards the right direction. And then the last thing I would say, and my boxing coach says this all the time, if you're not failing, you're not trying, right? So you have to iterate. Like in our company, we iterate as many times as possible, from the ad copy, from the content, from the pictures on people's profiles, because we want to always, we call it A/B testing, which I know you know, to see what works best, and then say, oh, A is working better than B. That's great. Now let's create a C and see how that goes. And if C is performing, now we're going to create a D. We're constantly iterating, because we could constantly improve upon what we're doing. So the last thing I would say is, once you have that grouping and you're walking or hopefully jogging and then maybe sprinting in the right direction, you still have to constantly iterate, especially in the digital environment where we live in, where AI, and I know everyone says that, but there's going to be another thing that's AI in the future. We don't know what it is, but there'll be other things. But if you're not adapting and you're iterating and always pushing the limits, you're not trying. And during that process, you will fail and make mistakes. But if you learn from those mistakes and know what not to do and what actually worked, you're going to improve. So you have to not have that fear of failing, and you have to be confident in your ability to say, hey, I'm going to fail, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes, but I'm going to learn through the process. And you know what? My process is going to be better than it was a month ago, and I'm going to keep doing it over and over and over again. So you have to be a little bit resilient, from getting rejected or failing, because a lot of the candidates aren't going to be ready. They need time to be nurtured and build the relationship like we spoke about, and you need time to develop that process.